what is biofeedback?
Okay, biofeedback, simply put, is brain exercise.
Okay.
So if you think about you go to the gym to exercise your body, when you do that, your body just naturally over time gets stronger, more resilient, more capable of coping with whatever life comes. Well, biofeedback for the brain is exercise for the brain. What that would look like in person would be electrodes go on the head, and where they go depends on what the problems are. So there's an extensive interview that asks a lot of questions that determine like what placement would be the most logical place to start. Nothing goes into the head, so there is not a current or a frequency or anything going in. We're putting the electrodes on to pull the frequency out, if you will. So the frequency of the brain, that's electrical, it's an electrical frequency. It comes through the cords and moves right onto my screen. And so then you would be looking at their what we would call a raw EEG. It's like what's going on at those two places in the brain. And then we're going to start something. I'll explain it in the simplest way I can. Um, well, I'll go backwards to make it make more sense. So, for those of you that aren't youthful, um, you think about the old Pac-Man, where the Pac-Man would go on the dots, and then when you weren't doing well, it would stop and turn dark. It would just like you could get eaten by a ghost.
Right.
Well, a long time ago, there was we had a game that was like Pac-Man. So when the brain was doing what we wanted it to do, the Pac-Man ate the dots. Beep, 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 beep. The Pac-Man moved and ran from the ghost, and you could get away. But when the Pac-Man, but when the brain diverted to some kind of activity that we're like, no, this is not a productive thing. Like, say, frequencies that relate to pain or frequencies that relate to anxiety or depression or poor focus, then the Pac Man would turn black, and then the person's brain would get it together, and then the Pac Man would start moving again.
Huh.
So, and back then, the, the time gap between what happened in the brain and what happened on the screen was about 3 seconds. So it's like the brain would do something, and about 3 seconds later, and even with that lag time, the brain would change and develop. Now the lag time is 300ths of a second.
Wow.
Like computer function has brought us along in rapid form,
Yeah.
and so now it looks more like it's more about subtleties because it's all happening so fast. Before I could literally see, there's that frequency, like that. I know that that's a range that there's a lot of people will express anxiety, and like I could see that, and then I could look over it and I could watch it happen because I had the gap. Now it's happening so quickly
Yeah.
that the computer is doing a lot more of the work because I can't operate in 300ths of a second. I
Right.
can't make decisions in 300ths of a second. So, in a lot of ways, the technology has brought us forward in amazing ways and has taken a lot of the burden off of the therapist. You still have to know what you're doing and you still have
Sure.
to make decisions, but the technology just keeps getting better and better. So
Wow.
now a way that it would look is you choose a YouTube video, whatever somebody prefers, and then the equipment applies a filter. And the filter would be like a square around the video. And when the brain's doing what you want, the square is wide and clear. And when the brain diverts, the square begins to close in and you can see less and less of the picture. And maybe it gets a little foggy or the volume goes down a bit. And so the brain quickly, it's not conscious. You're not working at it. You're just it's because if you think about it, when you wake up in the morning, you don't think, how many times does my heart need to beat today? But yet
Right.
your brain takes care of that.
Yeah.
Your brain is an amazing thing, and if you give it a better way to do something, it can. So that's the simplest way I can that filter that is just a series of yeses and nos.
Okay.
So when your brain's doing something wrong, it closes in, and the brain recognizes, this is not good, and the brain fixes it. But it's not conscious because I can even work with somebody who can't comprehend that. Like
Wow.
someone who had a stroke or a very small child, like a 3-year-old. Not all 3-year-olds would understand. You want the screen to be wide and clear, and you want the volume to be strong, not, but yet they still get better.
Wow. That is just fascinating. And for those of you that are watching on YouTube, I'm sitting here nodding my head going, wow. I mean, that is just absolutely amazing that this exists. Never heard of it until you reached out. And I'm so glad that you did. And I'm sure that many of our listeners are leaning in going, okay, I need to know if this is beneficial. So, what are the signs or symptoms that parents should look for to determine if biofeedback would be beneficial for their child?
Well, for 25 years, I've been getting phone calls that say, "Does biofeedback help?" and then fill in the blank.
Mm,
And if you think about it, what isn't brain related?
right.
Nothing.
Yeah.
Like, so I just, it sounds grandiose, but I believe it. I would try biofeedback, but before I would opt for so many other interventions that are dangerous. You
Okay.
know, we try medications, we try all these different processes that have a potential downside. I
Hmm.
have a real struggle with mental health meds with children.
Yes.
Like, I've seen children on adult doses of 6 medications, and
Wow.
some of the side effects are homicide, suicide, violence, and I'm like, "This child has all of these things. Like,
Wow.
why are we doing this?" And
Yeah.
I have more sympathy for it when it works once in a blue moon, and it is not often. I can think of 3 people ever right off the top of my head that I felt like their mental health meds were super beneficial. Like,
Okay.
literally, it was pretty significant mental illness. But what I've noted is somebody was so wise, like that, and 2 of them had the same doctor, that her philosophy is less is more. So we're not going to stack 5 or 6 meds in there and hope for the best.
Right.
Because even if it's not good, what do you do? How do you
Yes.
possibly know which one's the culprit?
Yeah.
Like, so so that being said, it's like I know there's a place for medication, but I think it is overused, and I think that the most vulnerable among us are getting the the shaft.
Yeah.
Like, children are can't like they're not even themselves. They have
Right.
slurred speech. There's medications, a medication that gets given often for kids that are institutionalized. I'm really not a fan of inpatient care at all. I
Mm.
feel like if you need it to keep someone alive, I'm glad it's there. But
Yeah.
outside of that, I do not think a child will heal while institutionalized.
Yes.
I like connection is healing, and you are not going to get the kind of healthy connections you need while institutionalized. And they,
Yes.
they come out sedated. They come out, I've had many children that I've spent hours working with the trauma they received inpatient. It might be a solution for adults that are tired of dealing with things, but
Yeah.
it is not. We do not need to fool ourselves into thinking children are going to thrive after an inpatient stay. they're
Yes.
going to they're going to need more help when it's over.